All right, we've just gone 11 o'clock, and so it's probably time we get underway. There are a few people joining us a bit after 11, so people will be coming into the space as we carry on through. My name is Mark Squires. I'm the operations manager here at Outdoors Queensland, and I'll be hosting this morning's webinar. Dom Courtney, who would normally be sitting in this seat, is currently in Alice Springs. He's been at a conference for the last couple of days, and he's feeling a bit crook as well. So I'm kind of taking the reins, and he will jump in when he feels that I've forgotten something, which is probably quite likely. So just a couple of things. We are recording these sessions, and these recordings and the notes and the chat and the links will be available afterwards, and we'll send that out to all of you who are online this morning. And the recordings and the links are also available on our website. If you've got any questions, feel free to jump in. We do have a couple of guests speaking this morning, and I know they'll both be keen to have questions thrown at them, so feel free to do that as we go through.
Hey Mark, I don't know if it's just me, mate, but I can't see your screen. I don't know if you want to share that with us or...
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I thought we were doing that already. Okay.
And it looks like we've got an imposter
folks.
Mark Squires as well. So welcome to all the Mark Squires. Yeah.
How's that? Are we seeing now the flags?
Yes.
Yes, excellent. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I thought we'd already shared. Anyway, so Outdoors Queensland respectively acknowledges the traditional owners and custodians of the lands where we gather across the state. And we pay respect to elders, past, present, and emerging. And we acknowledge the important role that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples play on the land, sky, and waterways that we use for outdoor activities. So I'm on the Sunshine Coast in Kabi country. And if you want to share with us in the chat where you're coming from, that would be excellent as well. So we also acknowledge the significant work that various government departments and ministers do and have done regarding outdoor activities, particularly the sport and recreation within the Department of Tourism, Innovation and Sport. And we gratefully acknowledge the funding that they provide to us and to outdoor activities across Queensland. So welcome now today to the 11th episode of Coffee and Conversation for 2023. We have a number of things to cover off today, a number of announcements, some training and development information, guest speakers, and some information on some research that's going on as well. The first thing that I'd like to talk about really is the Outdoors Queensland Awards. So these were held last Friday at the Regis Hotel in South Bank in Brisbane, and they recognise and reward excellence in the outdoors community. It was a great night, and we'd like to congratulate again all the finalists and all the winners of the 9 awards. The last 3 years we've been doing the awards online, and it was great to see people back together again in a room, having a great time and enjoying each other socially, and not just with a focus on the awards. We couldn't host the awards without our sponsor support. And so we'd like to acknowledge again sponsors for the awards: the Queensland Government, K2 Basecamp, Active Queenslanders Industry Alliance, and 2 new sponsors this year, Equipped Outdoors and Big Fox Unleash Your Power. The websites there's on the screen. After we finish here today, I will share these links. You can go and check out the list of winners, look at the videos that we run about each of the finalists on the website for the awards. So it's time for our first guest. So Dr. Sam van Holsbeek from the Sunshine Coast University has been doing some research at he is a postdoctoral research fellow at the Forest Research Institute at the University of Sunshine Coast. Sam, I might just throw to you straight now. So I will stop sharing my screen and you can take over.
Yep, thank you. And thanks for having me, everyone as well. First time that I'm here, so it's always nice to see what you guys are up to as well. What I'll talk about today, the Noburn app, I'll keep it quite casual. It probably is quite hard for me to keep an eye on the questions, so feel free to just interrupt me while I'm talking. If you have any questions or comments, not a problem at all. And I'll have to say I have to leave after the presentation because I'm at a conference. But feel free, maybe Dom, to share my email with the people at this meeting as well, if there's any sort of follow-up questions. Can everyone see the screen? That's good. All right. So
hang on a minute, Sam. I don't think that people can see your blue USC screen at the moment, and I'm not
so
sure
you can
why
see
that
the
is.
presentation mode.
Yeah, I can see the
presentation.
All right, excellent.
Okay, cool. No worries. Thank you.
So yeah, so as I've been introduced, my name is Sam. I'm at the University of the Sunshine Coast, and roughly for the last 2 years, I have been working with partners at the University of Adelaide and the Noosa Council on a citizen science project that we were awarded. And the project particularly goes by the short name Noburn, but it's essentially engaging citizen scientists in the process of bushfire research. And there's also a big component of artificial intelligence in the research that we're trying to do, but I'll talk a bit more about that. So Noburn is a sort of false acronym we draw together, standing for National Bushfire Resilience Network. And it really is a multidisciplinary research and citizen science project. So we cover disciplines like computer science, education, forest research, fire research, and a whole lot of it is also around communication and particularly sort of engaging with our target demographics. We are funded through the Commonwealth Department of Industry, Science and Resources. And like I said, it's a collaboration between 2 universities and local council. The current estimated end date for the project would be April 2025. But given that we have spent a lot of time developing an app, we are of course looking at ways to keep the project going in some capacity beyond this timeline as well. So the aim of our research is primarily there's two sections to it, I guess. There is a science component, and there's, of course, your engagement and citizen science component. So the science component is around prediction of severity, probability, and burn area of potential bushfires. And that's particularly through approaches like artificial intelligence and the data that is collected as part of the citizen science project. So with the citizen science element, we, of course, want to get our community involved in the data collection and mapping of forest fuels and getting people in touch with the environment and in particular our forest, but at the same time also developing a bit more awareness and resilience within our community and bringing across a bit of an understanding of what factors are driving bushfires, and what should people be aware of. And particularly the focus is for us all about prior to fire. So we want to get people, really engaged in that sort of research well and truly before fires happen, and get them that understanding of the environment. So most of the citizen science projects that are available or accessible in the bushfire research space are mostly targeted at bushfire recovery. So the fire goes through, and then community can be involved in recovery exercises or seeing what sort of biodiversity is there. But we wanted to sort of be ahead of the game and see if we can help with prediction and better prediction and modeling of bushfires as well. So if you haven't already, so the Noburn app is available for download in your app store. So you can just look for Noburn, or you can scan the QR code. But it should come up pretty quickly. We also have a website, so you can just go to noburn.app. There's more information there on what we're trying to achieve. About the team, the science that's behind it, and sort of keeping up to date with media as well. That QR code will also bring you to our social media. We try to keep that up to date, so feel free to give us a follow and stay up to date with the project as well. We launched the app around August this year after quite a development process that we've put together. So we're sort of in our second or third month, I guess, of having the app available for download nationally. So it's early days, and it's really for us around now collecting enough data. So we are now sort of progressing that in making that data slowly but surely available to the community and our stakeholders as well. So the app is, I guess, the key component of the project. We wanted to develop a tool that is freely available for anyone to be able to use and to do what we consider an overall fuel hazard assessment. So anyone can download the app, you create an account, and then we provide simple information for you on what we would like you to do or how we would like people to participate. So there's a learn page that tells you a little bit more about the different layers that are available in forest and that represent that fuel and what the different categories of hazards is associated with those layers. So it goes from a low to an extreme hazard category for each layer or type of fuel. So we provide that information, so then people go into the recording, and essentially that's a combination of taking photos, telling us a little bit about the forest, but at the same time then doing the assessment of fuel hazard. And that's a pretty standardized protocol that is being used by fire and emergency crews or forestry companies as well to do overall fuel hazard assessments in their forest. However, we try to condense it. So I guess when you're used to it or when you've done it a few times, it would only take you 5 minutes when you're in the forest to actually do the assessment. And so this has all been designed by the University of the Sunshine Coast and the research team. Everything is done in-house. So we try to steer away from any external parties or particularly around any personal information as well. I found it a really important point of the project, and we do want to reiterate that of not just having all that information securely stored and not accessible by anyone. So it's a really key important element for us. So like I said, we follow an overall fuel hazard assessment guide. This is one that's been developed by the Victorian government, and that's essentially what we're using. We've just digitized that. And the element of photos for us in particular, and I'll jump a little bit more, and that's coming into that artificial intelligence, is this is, of course, still a visual assessment that we would like people to partake. So it is still a person's interpretation of what they think the overall fuel hazard is. But we're looking at ways utilizing artificial intelligence to start automating that and start standardizing that. So that's kind of like that first element of machine learning. So it's to start automating this, and essentially when you see a photo like this forested environment that you see on the bottom right of the screen, so that's a forest photo, and what we would like artificial intelligence to do is to tell us, well, these are the trees, this is the particular bark type that's associated with that tree, and that's a particular and that bark type has a particular hazard rating based on the looks, and you can sort of go and do that for every single layer. So that's essentially what it is, but there is a bit of a metric system behind it that we're working through. So what we now want to get, of course, with the citizen science angle is getting as much data as possible, and that's really the strength of the citizen science project, is that we can have people out in the forest at any given time, anywhere around the country, to collect this data for us. Whereas for a researcher or a professional in fire and emergency, for example, it is really difficult to go and do that on a regular basis. And as you can imagine, our environment changes quite rapidly throughout the year, and seasons and droughts and all of these things. So that's kind of what we want to capture through the citizen science element here. That information then comes to us through the university, and then we go through this data around overall fuel hazard assessment to do an improved prediction of bushfires. So this is around burn area susceptibility, or the probability and severity of bushfires. An important thing, there's been a few changes in the way that we model or predict bushfires, particularly around there's essentially new bushfire behavior models are available for forested environment, and it becomes less focused on the total amount of fuel that's available, instead more focused on the structure of the fuel. And it's really something that we want to capture through the images that are taken. So it's less about quantity, but it's more on how the fuels are connected with each other, and how easily, for example, a fire can go into a canopy. So that is an important factor now into any future bushfire modeling. So we, from artificial intelligence or machine learning angle, we look at, you know, how fires historically develop, what elements play a factor there. So you have your topography or elevation, your vegetation. So standard analysis uses sentinel or remotely sensed imagery. We like to fortify that with the citizen science images and really giving that sort of sub-canopy detail about fuels. And then you have your climatic variables and fire frequency. And then we make an assumption that if a fire were to start in a particular area, we'd like to know what area that would consume, how likely that area would burn, and if it were to burn, how severe the fire would be. So here's a few examples. This is one in particular on probability. So we train artificial intelligence to understand, like, if a fire is starting, this is what area it would consume, and then we give it an unknown area. So this is an area that we provided down in New South Wales, in the Blue Mountains area, and based on historic fire events, we sort of come up with an assessment. So we say, look, this is the probability, the figure on your left side, lighter means more likely to burn, and then we sort of compare that with an actual fire that happened back in 2020, and you sort of then start matching that and looking at how close to reality did we get. Similar thing for the burn area. So we provided with an image of a forest that hasn't been burned on the left side there, October 2019. And then we make a prediction of, like, look, if fire is to start, this is the area that it would consume, and that's the red dotted line. And then we compare that with the actual fire if it happened. So again, in that same year or that same summer, Black Summer, the fire happened, and then the white area is the actual burn scar. So in this case, I think we had an 88% accuracy between those two. So just to give you an idea on how we intend to use this and improve our predictive capacity of bushfires. Just another example. So look, that's probably from me, just to give quick update on where we're at. Latest news since putting this presentation together is we do have very like a lot of interest now in the project since we've sort of launched the app, and that's kind of coming from across our key demographics. So we have forestry companies as well as fire and emergency services and groups like yourself now interested in the use of the app. And particularly I think one of the most important outcomes for us is that, for example, Queensland Fire and Emergency Services are really keen on integrating the data that's collected here as part of their overall fuel hazard assessment data as well, and really just giving that indication of where are areas that have a high fuel load and where are the areas that we might have to consider fuel mitigation strategies, whatever they might be. So just to give you an idea on as well where this data goes and what sort of impact we might have in our community short term. That's
right.
me. No.
Well, thanks, Sam. Does anybody have any questions for Sam?
I see a hand.
I've got one off the top, Mark. So Sam, with the app,
yep.
Is it really a matter of you're happy for us to download the app, and if we're going for a mountain bike ride, a horse ride, a bushwalk, literally when we stop for a break somewhere, take some photos, log a spot that we think, like, how do you choose the spot you're going to do it? Or do you just do it at the spot you stop and have a look at the forest there and assess it? Like, what's is that explained in the app on how we would actually do it to pick the spot that you're going to log?
Yeah, so it's exactly that. So we're obviously targeting forested areas and people who use or live or work in forested areas. So you guys are obviously a big part of that. So outdoor recreation. So people who hike or do bike rides or motorbike rides in forested areas. If you do have 5 minutes to spare along the track, it is a very easy protocol. So you essentially, once you're into the app, it works completely offline as well. It's best to download, of course, before you're going into the forest and set up your account and all of that. But essentially, you press the button and we guide you through an assessment protocol. So we tell you exactly what to do, how to take photos, and we provide reference material as well. So when you assess, for example, bark fuels, we'd ask you, look, what type of bark it is. We give you examples, and then also example images of what an extreme stringy bark hazard level would be. So you get a bit of reference material as well. So it should be pretty straightforward. Like I said, it would only take you 5 minutes, so we're not taking too much of your time, middle of your activity. But yeah, that's essentially it.
Right. Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Yeah, I'm off into the bush tomorrow morning with a group of people, and I will do this. I will download it and give it a go and share it with these people. They're all regular bushwalkers, and hopefully a few of them might decide to sign up as well.
Yeah, and surely if there is anything, feel free to let me know. I mean, like I said, we're sort of starting up. We do have quite a few users already, so that's really positive to see. But we keep growing. It is a research project, and part of that is keeping improving as well. So,
Sam, do you want private properties to log their forest as well? So, say for example, we've got 25 acres here in the middle of the Sunshine Coast, with the Alex Forest as part of our property. Do you want photos from private properties like that with forest areas or not?
yeah, sure, absolutely. And I think that's an important strategy that we're now sort of looking at in particular, going into that sort of bushfire, or we're already in it, but other parts of the country going into it is people being a little bit more prepared around their properties and knowing, what you're dealing with on your property. So if you do have trees or a forest on your property, you can utilize the app, and the app will essentially just give you an overview. If you do an assessment, this is your overall fuel hazard. If you're in an extreme fuel hazard category, you might be in a situation that at the wrong time of the year, it's something that you might have to do something about. So it's really important. We're also working now we have just a UE insurance company on the back of the university here, and we're working with them in terms of strategies of getting people, and particularly people who live in the forest, more aware and giving them tools to be prepared for this type of weather that we've just kind of been facing in the last couple of weeks as well. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Sam, just following
Wayne
on
Schimpff from Chicago. I work with the Boy Scouts of America and also with high school students through my Caretakers group. So you say citizen science, is it mainly aimed at what particular age group? And have you had any luck with recruiting the younger high school students that are in scouts or guides or whatever to use this app and that? And if so, what kind of success have you had? Because this sounds like a neat one. I'm involved with a lot of citizen science activities in the States here, but this is a new one for me. So cheerio, and I'm glad I heard your presentation.
Yeah. Look, the citizen science community is a wide group of people of all ages, and yeah, so we're going broad. We are working with local education providers. So there's, for example, in Queensland, I don't know if you're familiar with the Noosa Environmental Education Hub. So we're working with them. We have a component as well at the university of that's particularly targeting STEM research into primary to high school levels as well. And yeah, so we're putting a program together to utilize the app as part of a curricular or school's activity. So taking kids out in the bush and then utilizing the app and getting that understanding. An important part for us is to really cover the range there of anything that's sort of involved in bushfire research. So that goes from your fire and emergency services and the Australian Fire Danger Rating System, understanding of the forest, but also the use of fire in the landscape. So we have an important aspect there around Indigenous involvement. So we work with the Kabi people to get that importance out there as well, particularly on how Indigenous people used to or still manage the land, particularly with fire. So there's really like a big compelling story to be told, and we want to do that right. So we're just working through that at the moment. And the one thing, and I'm more than happy to talk about this in more detail, but I think Queensland is going through a bit of a transition where the use of mobile phones in schools is going to be limited. So that's a bit of an impeding factor for us. That's why we're sort of working with external parties who are specialized in that area to do and organize these activities with us. And we would just be part of a curricular activity rather than just having, it focused on the app itself. So yeah, absolutely. Really important demographic for us. The koalas are there for a reason as well. So it needs to, of course, be somewhat attractive to the younger demographic.
Well, you want to contact our U.S. Forest Service because as far as I know, this is my 75th year with the Boy Scouts of America leading conservation here in the Midwest in the United States. And I jumped on your site here just to see what kind of activities and that you folks are doing. I've been to Australia and in the outback in the Blue Mountains and 5.5 weeks kicking around New Zealand and Australia. So I'm kind of familiar with your ecosystems there and that. So yeah, so anything you can do to empower the high school age students and so on, because those are the future voters and the decision makers. So any way you can empower them, go for it. Thank you.
Much appreciated, Wayne. Thank you.
I've got a question, if it's okay. Sorry.
Yes.
I work alongside with a non-profitable organization on the scenic rim called Wild Mountain Environmental Center. It's based as a nature refuge, and we really work on grants. Is any of those data can be used for grant applications, and if so, how can we get the support of your app, and how can we collect those data for apply for grant, for burn off, for clearing off fire trails, and etc.
Yeah, so we're currently working because since we've launched the app, we had quite a few inquiries about companies or, like I said, fire and emergency crews wanting to actually, access that data. We can't provide all of the data, particularly personally identifiable information. So that is, of course, restricted. But we're working now through that. So in coming weeks, hopefully, we will have a data portal that's particularly sitting on the website. So you will be able to log in with your own account or with your company account if you make one, and then you will be able to download the data that's collected on that account, and then plug it into whatever system that you have. So that will be a CSV type file that you can put in a GIS or whatever you would like to do with it. So that is available. When it comes to grants, and if you want to use the app, I mean, the app is available for download, and you can use it as long as you don't really want to change anything to the app. That's, it's free for everyone to use. We can happily provide support letters if that's what you're wanting. But yeah, that's kind of what the app itself won't change in the near future up until at least April 2025. It's probably at that point that we will be looking at, okay, well, what continuation options do we have for the project? And that can range quite broadly and will depend on what we think is the best use case nationally, I guess, as well.
Well, thank you for clarifying. Thank you.
No problem.
Excellent. Well, if that's all the questions for Sam, thank you very much, Sam. Sam has to dash off. He's actually at a conference today, so he's just pulled out to come and share that with us. So thanks very much. We appreciate that.
Thank you. I just have a question from Laurie in the chat. Laurie, is it all right if you get in touch with me via email, because I'll log out of this?
Yeah, no worries, Sam. Sorry, guys. I just said if he wants to extend this news, which is awesome, we can extend it into New South Wales and ACT for you as well.
All right, I'm just copying your email address here. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Sam. And we'll pass on your email address out to the attendees of the session too. So if anyone has any follow-up questions for Sam, we'll pass that on as well. So thanks very much for joining us today, mate, and appreciate you making some time in your busy day for us. So
no problem. Thank you so much for having me. See you guys.
Cheers. Bye, Sam.
Okay. No worries. Well, thanks very much for all that. Just before we move on to our second guest today, we thought this is probably timely to just remind us all that Queensland, as we know, is going through some fairly horrific times with with bushfires. Over 60 homes lost, I read, I think last night. And it's probably pertinent for us to keep on top of the information about this. So the links there and the maps that's showing the fire locations and the level of emergencies that exist in those areas. Again, those links will be shared after the presentation. Right, so moving on now to Murray Stewart, who is currently working with the Active Queensland Industry Alliance and has a project he wants to tell you about. Murray is probably quite well known to some of you. He is a former director, former boss of mine here at Outdoors Queensland, and he is currently on our board, but working with the AQIA on this project. So Murray, would you like to jump in there, mate?
Thanks, Mark. So for those of you that are wondering who the AQIA is, it is the old Fitness, Sport and Recreation Skills Alliance. So it's an interesting time in this space that this word active is being used a lot more than it was previously, and the active industry is now a thing as well. So it's quite good because before it was always sport, and we'd always have to say and recreation after all the stuff at most of the meetings we went to. So we think that having the word as the active word in it probably includes recreation, fitness, movement, which is your Pilates and yoga brigade and all that stuff as well. So there's outdoor ed, outdoor rec, community rec. It brings us all under one title from there. So hence the name change from what was the old Fitness, Sport and Recreation Skills Alliance. But the organisation itself, I guess, is the peak body for workforce development across those industries. And AQIA also has another deal with government that they look after racing as well. But certainly in our industry skills advisor role, where we have a direct link to both federal and state governments, where we provide advice back to them on our industry as well. And we've been really fortunate to get some funding, not from the Department of Employment and Training, but from the Sport and Rec Department, to develop a workforce plan for our industry. So there's only been two others done. One was agriculture and the other one was tourism. So again, pretty big industry. So to be the third one's out, we're pretty lucky there, given, I guess, the scope we have, or the size of our industry, compared to those big ones that what does the Queensland government call them? Pillars, I think, is their word for what they call them from there. So what it's done though, Jobs Queensland, and I don't know if you've had an opportunity, but jump onto the Jobs Queensland site if you want to go down a rabbit hole for a few hours. They've got a data portal in there where you can search all of the workforce data for Queensland by industry, by region, by everything from there, and you can really drill down, and it's really good data there, and it's also got a great predictor of future need as well. So they've just dumped their latest load of data probably a month ago now on, so it's all fairly current, but it does use previous data and things like that from there. I guess the kicker for us is the Olympics and the Paralympics coming up, hence probably why we've seen the active industry get picked up as an industry that needs to come up with a workforce development plan from there. So listening to the research around it and all that sort of stuff, with a major event, sporting event like that coming to a country, we see a general uplift in people being active. So it's interesting. There's not a whole, the data actually says that people play, less active in the sports space, but what we actually see is the general increase in activity in people going out for a walk, going for a swim, riding a bike, doing all that sort of stuff from there. So it's a time where it's not just focused on sport, it's focused, I guess, on the whole active area, how we can support that expected increase in participation in our industry from there. That's why it isn't just been left to do a sport-based one. They're looking at the whole of the active industry and what we need to do from there. So the process is we're just about to launch the survey. The stakeholder reference group is now formed. We've done some desktop research on it there, and it's actually amazing how much training occurs across the active industry. We're one of the biggest numbers in the vet space, especially given your personal trainers, sports coaches, outdoor rec quals, outdoor ed quals, and things like that. In the vet world, the active industry is very, very well represented from there. Not so much at the university space, but when you're just counting numbers, definitely in the vet area, we are a big numbers game there as well. So with this one, we've just about got the survey ready to go live. It'll be happening probably next week, and Mark will include this in a e-news that'll be going out for you there to click on the link. So the process is, so in the survey, we're looking at trying to get some solid data on where's the gap, or basically, the current supply. So where are the supply issues now? What are the jobs that we're all trying to fill from there? Is it management positions? Is it people on the ground? Where are the roles that we need to do? And then look at the future demand that we're expecting to get with this uplift in participation. And then what do we need to do to make sure that we're filling those gaps as we move forward? Now, the Olympics are 9 or so years away now, 10 years away, sort of thing from there. But the great part about the plan is that we've split it in half. So we're going to have the next 5 years and then the 5 years after that. But also there'll be the post-Olympics part as well. So what happens after the Olympics and what do we need to do from there? Given our industry, we've got a lot of volunteers in the industry. So we assume that whether you're a paid employee or a volunteer, you're a worker. So it'll be the same from there. So any of the data you see coming out of this, the survey when you get it, workers are workers, whether they're paid or not paid from there. Who do we need? How do we need to train them? What do they need to work through from there? Which is a really good outcome, given that usually a workforce development plan will just be about jobs. So it's great that we've been able to attach the volunteer part of it from there. So basically survey will come out probably next week from there. Couple of weeks to get that data about our supply. Where are the issues? What does industry think the growing, I guess, demand will be? Where will that demand exist? What opportunities are there to work together to fill that demand? Something that we were talking about previously was on a sports side of things. Up in Rockhampton, there's one of the only 10-metre diving platforms in the state is in Rockhampton. There's not really one north from there, but they don't do any diving there because they don't have any diving coaches. So we said, well, how can we train the swimming coaches to also become diving coaches so that we can then do diving at one of the only pools that has diving at it from there? So, we often operate in silos, but how can we actually bring this together so that we can, I guess, make the workforce more efficient and effective without having to increase a whole lot of numbers and stuff like that from there. So that's the sort of stuff we're looking for in this initial survey that'll be coming out, is where are we at, where do we think we're going to be, and what ideas can we work from there. After that, we'll then get that information together and we'll do some targeted workshops on what the survey does from there. We'll actually sit down with people face to face. Some of them may be together, some of them may be individually from there too. So to unpack this a little bit there so that we can have, a really good plan at the end of the day that's actually from industry for industry as well. So we're looking back at the tourism and the ag ones. It's all quite motherhood statements like, we want tourism to be the preferred employer or the preferred where people want to go for job. Well, what does that mean? So we want our one to be a lot more detailed than that and really have some grunt behind it as to exactly what we need right now to be able to hit our targets in 5 and in 10 years' time from there as well. So yeah, it's a bit of a, we were hoping to have the survey up, but we're just doing some testing on it still now. We wanted to make sure it was okay, but it'll be next week or so. So keep an eye out for that. Please spread it around your networks, send it to all the other people that are in the active space from there. A good way to remember what an active thing is it does require physical exertion. Okay, so you know, that's, I guess, is the way to put it. We're not looking at the bar staff that are working at the Broncos Leagues Club or those sort of, we don't see them in the active industry, or the accountants that work at the you know, the department and stuff. We're looking, really, this is just for the people that are on the ground and outdoor from there. Hopefully that gives you a bit of a brief overview of the plan of attack. Like I said, it's really just about to kick off now. So yeah, keep an eye on your emails. And like I said, please share the link. The more people we get to do the survey, the better the data will be, and the better we can make this plan at the end of the day.
Excellent.
Thanks, Murray.
Yeah, thanks, Murray. Has anybody got any questions for Murray before we move on?
Just my additional one, Murray. So is it you want any organisation involved in Queensland's active industry to fill in the survey?
Definitely. Yep.
Yep.
Whether it's the you know, the Cleveland Badminton Club, or you know, Adventure Alternatives up on the sunny coast, or whoever it is from there, you know, let's yeah, if we can, the more the merrier. Like I said, the description of the active industry is still being sorted out, but yeah, it's basically, you know, getting people out, getting people active.
Excellent. Right. Well, thanks, Murray. So moving on, we've got a few more things to cover off before we finish up today. So first of all, that there are some funding programs out there. The Minor Infrastructure and Inclusive Facilities Fund opened in late last month, and it makes $45 million available to help Queensland sport and active recreation facilities, or perhaps we should say Queensland active recreation facilities and sport, make sure they are safe, accessible, inclusive, and more efficient. The projects must align with two major funding categories. They must be inclusive and accessible, and they must be safe, of quality, and efficient. The dates for this fund on the screen there, and I'll make sure those dates are included with the information that comes out to you all after we finish the meeting this afternoon. And if you check out that website there, it's where you can find information on other funding opportunities as well. The Accessible Tourism Elevate Fund provides two grant options for eligible applicants, depending on what they need and depending on where they are on their accessibility journey. So we have Access Starter Grants there on the screen, $5,000 for eligible tourism and events organisations at the start of the journey to get the basics right, and that closes early December on the 6th. And the Access Project Grants, which is funding of between $50,000 and $250,000 to support best practice accessibility projects that are co-designed with people with disability and will deliver tangible, high-impact accessibility improvements. And that fund closes on the 21st of December. The Queensland Outdoor Census. Now, those of you who've attended these things in the last few weeks will have, or last few months will have heard us talk about this. It closed the census on Monday, the 31st of July. We had lots of responses from across the state, and thank you to all that were involved in that. And if you're one of them, thank you very much. There's a report coming out before the end of the year that will include, obviously, the data and our reflections on that data. And I believe there's also some infographics being created to kind of summarize the data as well. This is a survey that we're planning on redoing every 4 years, so we can get an idea of the changes over time. We had a guest on the show here a few weeks ago, Daniel Hughes from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. who discussed a review of the Australian and New Zealand Standard Classification of Occupations, or ANZSCO. And round 2 included the allied health and tourism occupations, which have relevance to outdoor organisations. The round opened on the round 3 opened on the 10th of October and is still open until the 5th of December. And it includes the broad category of arts and recreation and sports occupations.
Mark, I was talking to Jo yesterday. She's had an amazing response from the industry about this. She said she hasn't seen everyone so active in their opinions. So good to see people care about this data, which is usually dry and very boring. So yeah, that's great.
Well, it's good to see some of these fairly sort of random and remote occupations being included. It had always been difficult to find where they would have lived earlier on. So occupations such as the bungee jump master, for instance, fishing guides, hunting guides, and trekking guides are under the sports activities and not under arts and recreation. But they're all included in this coming round. So in any feedback that you all want to give back to Jo at the AQIA would be fantastic. There's information there, website, consult.abs.gov.au. Again, we'll share that with you all later on. The Climate Change Industry Survey. Outdoors New South Wales and the ACT, Laurie's here today with us, are still seeking responses to the Australia-wide survey regarding the outdoor industry's present position on climate change. Laurie, do you want to say anything at all about that while you're here?
Happy to. Thanks, Mark. Look, this is an important survey on the basis that we're looking at the survey we did in 2021, which feels like a lifetime ago. It was only 2 years, and re-benchmarking where we sit today on what we fed back from the earlier survey, just to get a bit of a feel for really where people's sentiments and what they're trying to do in this space is growing or falling. Which helps. We've got a climate change subcommittee who are looking at what we can do to provide the industry with better tools, resources, information, because we know that right now the climate in our consumers is changing, and they are prepared to pay for businesses that are doing great things in this space. So the more we get this information, the more we can help the industry. And like we always do, we share across borders, and we can make sure that, you know, yourself, Mark and Dom have the information that we can help Queensland operators as well in this space. So we'd love everyone to jump in and have their say and where their heads are at in relation to what they're doing in sustainability or climate change. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Laurie. And another report, the AUSPLAY Sport and Physical Activity Participation Report. So released on October 31. And it's a report that has national, state, territory and sport data tables for the 2022-2023 financial year. There's quite a lot of information about the report on the website there. But it has updated information, you know, over the years, visualizations on the portal, and they're based on the AUSPLAY's 150,000 plus sample taken between 2015 and 2023, and they include almost 60 individual sport and physical activity reports.
Mark, those ones, that's only just dropped this week. I haven't had a good look at it yet, but there are some really good reports, and you can drill down to the individual level. So you can look at a report purely on mountain biking or purely on rock climbing. So there is some good stuff in it. It has quite, this may not be surprising coming from the Australian Sports Commission, it's termed in sporting language all the way through it, such as, you know, a profile of the typical player instead of the participant, but we know what they're trying to say. So it is actually really interesting, some of the information in there, and it could be really valuable. It's quite significant. You can see there on that screen, recreational walking is far and away the highest participation activity and then they separate walking from bushwalking. So bushwalking is also in the top 10. So yeah, it's quite significant when you combine those. Mountain biking's in there. Quite a few, or cycling is seems to be lumped together, but there's quite a few of in our world that are in that top 20 as well.
The scary one in our space is those goggles sitting down the bottom right-hand corner there, the virtual-based physical activity, they call it. So you'll struggle with that one.
That one's unusual, but yes, it's out there, mate.
It's growing unbelievably. So it's part of all the data now.
And I think I saw a suggestion the other day somewhere that esports should be included in the Olympics in 32 as well, which is an interesting development.
Yeah, we won't go there.
Indeed. So we're getting close to the end. So just to remind you, the survey, the Outdoor Opportunity Survey is out there. Our website, the Outdoors Queensland website, has lots of information on it about all this sort of stuff. There are news stories about most of this information, and certainly we'll put up some information about the Noburn app and the survey that Murray talked about earlier on. That'll be up there, hopefully, well, as soon as the information comes through from the AQIA, we'll get it live on our site as well. And we'll include that information in a future e-bulletin or an e-news. So if there's anybody got anything they would like to add or share with us this morning before we close off?
Murray, Mark, just one thing, probably thanks to Wayne for joining us from Chicago. I thought I was going to win the prize for the furthest distance to join. I think I'm about 5,000 kilometres away or something, 2,500 kilometres, but Wayne's got the distance record for this month. So thanks very much for joining us, Wayne, from North America.
And it's actually, I joined you at 8 o'clock Thursday evening in Chicago. So you guys had 11 o'clock. So I'm having a little drink that I'm Wayne. So I have John Wayne's, mug here where it says, a man's got to do what a man's got to do. So here's to everybody on the call, and just had to get a feel. I've been involved with outdoor recreation, outdoor education, at the city of Chicago, the county of Cook, the state of Illinois, and with the National Park Service, and for 75 years with the Boy Scouts, and that have traveled to 80 different countries around the world, helping to engage high school students in environmental activities that empower them with scientific facts, STEM skills, and so on, to be able to make a difference. And each year my organization hosts a conference somewhere in the world for the past 38 years to have them, students from around the world, come to the country to share the activities they've done locally with a partner, and share it at the conference site. The only continent other than Antarctica that we haven't had a conference at is Australia. So if some of you
could be an opportunity, Wayne. Maybe we should be talking about that. Yeah, you might want to tidy that up, and then you'll just have to go to Antarctica next time after us.
Well, yeah. So if any of you want to, you can Google my Caretakers of the Environment International website. It's Caretakers, the number 4 all .org, and you can see more about it. And I can quickly put my email in the chat if any of you want to. Let's see, I don't want to send anything direct. So,
yeah, if you want to share the website there as well, Wayne, we'll.
Oh yeah, you've got it on my website. Yeah. So if any of you want to correspond with it and everything, because I work with various businesses and that, we have a Chicago Wilderness Alliance where we've got the business leaders, the recreation, about 300 different organizations that believe in a biodiversity recovery plan for the southern tip of Lake Michigan, and I'm one of the co-founders of it. And so it was just interesting to see how this particular economic, arm in your part of Australia is working to create sustainability and so on. So that was my level of curiosity, so on. This past summer, I spent 4 weeks over in Indonesia working with the Scouts and the Ministry of Environment and Education over there, but didn't have a time to hop over to Perth or anything like that on my trip. So, okay, thank you. And
thanks, Wayne. Feel free to come back and join us again. I gotta
check out the Environmental Education Hub and see what that's about. So, okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Cheerio,
thanks,
everybody.
And yes, on that note, thanks to all the rest of you for coming along this morning as well. Our next session is Friday, the 1st of December, 11 a.m. again. And if there's nothing else from anybody else, I will just do a sign off. In fact, I'll get Dom to jump in with his usual sign off because it's a good one. Dom, please.
Thanks, Mike. So my favourite sign off: be kind to the planet, be kind to each other, and importantly, be kind to yourself. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks, folks. See you next time.
Rainbow hugs to everybody.
Bye all. Thanks.
Bye.